Deb Murphy filed a report for Sierra Wave Media stating, will some 11-year-old computer geek mess with Inyo County's voting results? Can Russia, or she writes, some 400-pounder sitting in his bedroom breach the county's voter registry? No way. Locals can go to the polls November 6th, secure in the fact that their vote will count, but just once. Now, the reason is pretty simple. Inyo County's voting system isn't connected to the World Wide Web. It's tucked safely in the offices of Inyo County's clerk, recorder, register of voters, Kammi Foote, protected by stringent policies and procedures. Now, to be fair, that 11-year-old didn't really hack into Florida's actual state website. The target of his 10 minutes of hacking was a replica website used during an exercise at DEF CON held earlier this month in Las Vegas. And while intelligence officials did reveal hackers attempted to breach state voter registration databases during the November 2016 election, they may have only partially succeeded in Illinois. Now, Kammi Foote walked Sierra Wave Media through the process, starting at the polls where voters mark their paper ballots. Those ballots are packaged, security sealed, and brought to the Independence Courthouse by 2 volunteers. Everywhere marked ballots go, they're accompanied by 2 people. That's the rule. Now, the ballots are recounted in Independence, then scanned. The only computer interface in the system, Kammi Foote said. But that system is protected by an air gap. In other words, it's not connected to the internet. Now, if hackers could get to the equipment before the vote is certified, the results could be messed with, but the likelihood is slim to none, and, well, I'll add slim just left town. The computers live in a physically secured place, and that's all Foote would say on that matter. However, there are still checks in place just in case a wily hacker got to the equipment. Now, prior to certification, the votes are audited with a hand count that is then compared to the scan totals. Inyo County also conducted a risk-limiting audit for the special election in April, and that audit served as a test of new voting equipment. It worked perfectly, Kammi Foote said. It was sound from end to end. Foote and her staff use computers, obviously, but everything is backed up with printouts. We could operate without computers, she said. And even staff computers and servers are guarded by a firewall designed to block unauthorized access. Any transfer of voter and/or election information is done on a One Direction CD or DVD rather than the more conventional thumb drive whose info can go both ways. Kammi Foote took delivery of the software for the new equipment personally, meeting the deliverer at Topaz Lake in what sounded like a scene from a John le Carre novel. That kind of software can't be shipped. It's all hand to hand. The 11-year-old hacker in Vegas would be faced with an impossible task, infiltrating Inyo's voter results or rolls. We thank Deb Murphy for that report. Well, the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power released a statement in response to the litigation filed by the Mono County Board of Supervisors, and that states LADWP has continued operating this year as we have in prior years, providing irrigation water to ranchers in Mono County based on operational needs as provided for in each lease. LADWP is considering entering into new leases with the ranchers and other lessees in Mono County and will complete a full and thorough environmental impact report before the new leases are approved. While continuing to provide irrigation water to ranchers, LADWP, through regular field visits and an established working group, continues to work closely and implement recommendations from the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, Bureau of Land Management, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, Mono County, local Audubon representatives, and U.S. Geological Survey to provide water for the region's sage grouse. That news release continues. The amount of water the county is demanding we use for flood irrigation on a small portion of City of LA owned land in southern Mono County is enough to serve nearly 50,000 households every year and would cost Los Angeles ratepayers nearly $18 million to replace the amount of water requested and the lost hydropower it generates by purchasing additional supplies from the already stressed state water project. That LADWP news release continues. Climate change demands that we carefully manage limited water supplies throughout the state of California. We are committed to doing so and working with our lessees to use water more efficiently. And that was signed by Richard Harrisick, the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power Senior Assistant General Manager of the water system. And Deb Murphy filed this story. Inyo and Mono counties have more in common than most residents of either would like to admit. Both have vast areas of public land, small populations, housing issues, and economies driven by tourism. Eastern Sierra Council of Governments. Those meetings are one of the safe harbors for open discussion of mutual issues. Elected officials from both Inyo and Mono counties and Mammoth Lakes and Bishop met last week to go over some of those issues. Here's a snapshot. Air Service trying to coordinate information between Mammoth and Inyo County has exposed more questions than answers, especially without any input from Alterra Mountain Company. Now, last week's Eastern Sierra Council of Governments meeting provided some hints, but a joint meeting coming up in Mammoth should provide some real answers. Now, according to Council Member John Wentworth, the town will be using $25 million in Federal Aviation Administration funding on facility improvements, but will let Inyo, Alterra, and the FAA work out the details and timelines on the Bishop Airport. Mammoth won't be writing any checks, said Wentworth. That's between Alterra and Inyo. Now, money will be coming through the FAA pipeline. That's what Inyo County Supervisor Jeff Griffiths said. Once the FAA saw we, and he meant Inyo, Mammoth, and Alterra, were on the same page, they're going to make this a top regional priority. Now, Inyo County will have to do a National Environmental Policy Act analysis based on the most ambitious airport build-out, Griffiths said, to avoid having to revisit environmental work in the future. The funding is in Inyo's budget. Also, council talked about fire and smoke. Mammoth Lake seriously threatened by the Lions fire, but both Inyo and Mono counties have been shrouded in smoke for much of the summer. Unfortunately, the most effective weapon against uncontrolled wild land fires is the use of controlled burns and the removal of large swaths of dead trees. We're going to be seeing controlled burns for the next 20 years, John Wentworth said, referring to Inyo National Forest plans that also include allowing wildfires that do not threaten life or property to run their course. Mono County Supervisor Bob Gardner's answer was educating the smoke inhaling public through a series of public meetings. Thank Deb Murphy for that report. Well, CalTrans announced the California Transportation Commission approved funding for more than 100 transportation projects funded entirely or at least partly by $690 million from SB 1. That's the Road Repair and Accountability Act of 2017. Some area projects receiving funding include Inyo 395 South Lone Pine, the pavement project, $8.9 million pavement and replacement project will improve 11.5 lane miles of U.S. Highway 395 from south of State Route 136 to East Inyo Street, and then again from State Route 136 at the U.S. Highway 395 intersection in Lone Pine. Project, again, allocated $8.9 million, $1 million in funding due to SB 1. Also, the Town Pass Curves Project, $4.2 million project on State Route 190 in Death Valley near Panamint Springs, will realign curves and widen shoulders. Press release notes to reduce the number and severity of collisions. Conway Guardrail Project, $3.6 million on Highway 395 near Bridgeport, will reduce the number and again the severity of collisions by upgrading the guardrail to current standards. We'll be back with more news.